His hand slammed me into cold steel. I tasted metal. I tasted rage. Then his eyes dropped to the stars on my collar. Silence. A heartbeat. A career shattering. He pinned the wrong woman. I wasn't a recruit. I was his commanding admiral. The corridor whispered with old paint and humming lights. I walked it alone, cap tucked under my arm, shoes quiet on wax. The base smelled like salt and brass. Orders hung in the air like dust. My father's watch sat cold in my pocket. Its face was cracked. The second hand stuttered at the 12 as if time kept tripping. I kept it with me anyway. A promise, even broken, still counts. They said the admiral should arrive with an escort. A band, maybe. A line of salutes. I said no. I prefer to meet a place before it meets me. A quiet walk tells you more than a parade ever does. A petty officer passed with a stack of forms. His eyes flared when he recognized me. He started to salute. I shook my head once, not yet. He swallowed and kept moving. News of my appointment outran my orders. It always does. Outside, the road that fed the base was a dusty ribbon. It ran all the way back to the bus stop. Past that, to a town with chipped paint and cheap coffee. Past that, to a childhood where you hold an empty wallet up to the light to see if maybe a coin is hiding in the seam. It never is. You learn to look anyway. Hope does not need a reason. It needs a habit. The first shout came sharp around the corner. A scrape of boots. A bark of laughter that had too much edge in it. I paused. The watch ticked and then didn't. I stepped into the cross corridor. 2 lieutenants squared off by the supply cages. One tall, shoulders like a door. The other wiry, jaw set. A third stood between them, hands up, speaking low. I caught the tail of it. Something about fuel charts. Something about who signed what. The tall one moved first. He bumped the wiry one hard, too hard. The middle man flinched. The wiry one shoved back. I kept walking. Not fast, not slow. Just steady. My cap still in my hand. They did not see me. Men deep inside their own heat do not see anything. Enough, I said. The word fell between them like a wrench. They turned. The tall one's mouth tightened. His eyes slid past the stars in my pockets. He saw only a woman who stepped into his space. He didn't see the office. He saw a wall. He moved. It was all reflex and bad habit. He shoved. My shoulders hit the cinder block. The shock punched air from my lungs. His forearm came up under my collarbone. Close enough that I counted the small scar under his left eye. Close enough to smell coffee and mint over old adrenaline. The middleman shouted. Someone told him to stop. Boots scuffed behind him. The hallway held its breath. I did not push back. I did not flinch. I looked him in the face. Calm as a blade when you know how to sharpen it. Sir, the third one stammered. Don't, the tall one leaned in a fraction. Stay out of this, he said. Not to the other lieutenant. To me, the broken watch ticked once in my pocket. The sound was ridiculous. Loud as a bell. My father used to say a watch is a story you carry. The crack tells you where it was dropped. The tick tells you it got up anyway. I let my cap fall. It hit my shoe. The brim brushed the floor, and the light caught the metal in my pocket as I reached to steady it. Not the watch. The small pin that had snagged there from the morning's pinning. 4 silver stars. New to this coat. Not new to me. He saw them. His pupils tightened like fists. His weight shifted off my chest. His mouth opened. The color fell out of his face. He looked down at my shoulder where the stars belonged. He looked back at my eyes. He stepped back as if the floor had burned him. His hand snapped to his brow. Too fast, almost a salute. Not clean. Not steady. Admiral, he breathed. The corridor stayed very, very quiet. Then, somewhere far down the hall, a phone started ringing. No one answered it. Name, I said. Lieutenant Rowan Hale, he said, voice low, words heavy. Report to my office, I said. Now, he swallowed. Yes, Admiral. I picked up my cap. The watch ticked once more and quit again. I slid it back into my pocket. A promise that had learned to limp. I turned and walked. The hallway parted like a tide. Behind me, whispers rose like foam. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Because as the door to my office closed, the phone that had been ringing out in the corridor started ringing in here too. A different phone. The red one. The one they only use when a storm is already on the water. I lifted it to my ear, and the voice on the line said, Admiral Carter, we have a fire where no fire should be. The line crackled, then died, and someone knocked on my door from the other side, hard. The knock rattled the glass in the frame. I set the phone down. Static clung to my fingers like a web. I said, "Enter." Lieutenant Rowan Hale stepped in, cap tucked tight, eyes focused on the floor. The third officer followed. He looked pale. He looked like every junior officer who has just watched a career snap and wondered if it will splinter into his hands next. "Names," I said. "Hale," the tall one repeated. His voice was hoarse now. "Rowan, Operations, Division 12. The other man cleared his throat. "Lieutenant Way Park, ma'am. Supply." I nodded once. The watch sat on the desk between us. Hairline cracked like a river through glass. The minute hand hesitant, the second hand caught again on 12. My father used to fix engines that way. Gentle tap, a breath, a prayer you pretend is just a habit. "The fire," I said to Park. He swallowed. "Fuel farm, Admiral. Sector B. No heat signature on the monitors. Then a pop. Then alarms. We're spinning up trucks. The bay doors jammed. Sabotage?" I asked. He looked like he wanted to say no. He said nothing. I stood. "We're going." I looked at Hale. "You're with me?" He looked surprised, then wary. Then something that looked like shame broke across the angle of his jaw. He nodded. "Yes, Admiral." We moved. Fast now. Out through the corridor, down the stairs, out into the wind. The base opened like a grid of clean lines and strict promises. Sirens began to climb the air. Men ran. Trucks coughed awake. The sea threw a hard white edge at the breakwater. On the way, we passed the gate that leads to town. A gust lifted grit from the shoulder. The dusty road beyond looked like old paper. My memory slipped. A kid's shoes leaving prints where no one bothered to sweep. A bus that only came on the hour. A girl counting coins in an empty wallet. Counting anyway. Because habit is its own kind of faith. Rowan kept pace beside me. He was all angles. He had the look of a man who runs to burn off heat. Not the kind who runs away. I watched how he moved through the mess. He avoided bodies without looking at them. He read gaps before they were gaps. Good. Useful. Dangerous when pointed wrong. At the bay, the door was stuttering against dented rails. Fire roared somewhere inside. Not the big bright fire of a film. The low, stubborn kind that fattens on fumes. The sort that waits for your mistake and then takes your air. "Power down," I said. "Aye," Park answered, hauling at the breaker. The door coughed. The rails bit. The panel shuddered down. "Secondary," I said. He threw the second switch. The door eased an inch. Then another. Then stuck, Hale moved without asking. He grabbed the bar with both hands. "On 3, he said to the nearest petty officer. His voice was steady. 1, 2, 3. They heaved. The door came up a foot. Smoke rolled out low and dark, hugging the floor like a threat that knows your name. "Masks," I said. "Hose line. Keep the stream low." I went down on one knee and crawled under the door. Hale came with me. He should have been sent back for putting hands on me. He should have been cooling his heels with a charge sheet waiting. Instead, I listened to that old part of me that learned to read men on dusty roads and over empty cups of coffee. We went in. Inside, heat spoke in a tongue that burns its verbs. Metal pinged as it bent. A valve sang high and thin. We followed the sound. Valve room. Someone had propped the hatch with a wrench. The hinge was scored. The lock was clean. Too clean. "Pretty work," Hale muttered through his mask. "Too pretty," I said. We got the wrench out. We shoved the hatch. Heat pressed back. The stream hissed. The line kicked. We worked until the hiss turned to steam and the steam turned to breath. When we found the burst, it wasn't a burst. It was a cut. Neat, center line. The sort of line you draw when you already know where to stand to stay out of the camera. "Cameras?" I asked. "Dead," Park said, voice tinny over the radio. "All 4. Which means someone knew how to turn eyes to sleep. Which means someone had a key they shouldn't have." We backed out. The door came down on its rails and stuttered shut. My shirt stuck to my spine under the coat. Hale's sleeve was singed. "Medical staging outside," Park reported. "No casualties." "Good," I said. I pulled my cap off and wiped my palm on the brim. The cracked watch lay cool against my wrist bone now. I felt the tick. 1, none. 1, none. A heart after a sprint and a shock. "Admiral," Hale said. He looked like a man who had something he didn't want to say to the person who most needed to hear it. "Speak," I said. He glanced toward the empty road beyond the fence. The dust still moved there. The kind of wind that remembers land. "I owe you an apology," he said. "You owe the uniform respect," I said. Start with that. Earn the rest, he nodded, jaw tight. Now tell me who cut my valve, I said. He blinked. Surprise. I don't know. You know something, I said. Because you were down this way earlier. Because your boots smell like fuel. Because you had friction in a corridor about charts. Because your eyes keep flicking left toward Building 6 where supply prints copies they shouldn't. He looked at my face. He looked at the cracked watch. He looked at the trucks. He swallowed. My wallet is empty, he said suddenly. Not like a complaint, like a confession. Most are, I said. I wasn't at supply for a favor, he said. I was there for a name. Someone's been selling remnant JP5 out of the farm on Thursday nights. Someone with codes. It's been going on for weeks. Why do you care? I asked. Because my sister's house caught fire when I was 15, he said. Because the man who sold my town cheap gas never saw jail. Because men who cut corners set other people's lives on fire and never smell like smoke. He had said too much. He looked away. I was late this morning, he added quietly. Running down a rumor. It put me in your corridor at the worst possible second. Wind kicked a line of grit across the concrete. It sounded like paper being sanded. Far away, a gull shrieked like someone laughing at the wrong time. Park jogged over with a clipboard and tight shoulders. Admiral, we found this. He held up a badge in a bag. The laminate gleamed. The picture belonged to a civilian contractor. The chip inside the edge did not belong to anyone. It opens keypads that should only open with 2 hands and a quiet conscience, Park said. I took the bag. The chip was new. It had the clean, smug look of something that has not yet failed. Chain of custody, I said. Park nodded and started the form. Hale shifted his weight. Permission to speak freely, Admiral. Denied, I said. Then granted. Make it count. This wasn't small time, he said. Whoever cut that valve wanted you busy. Wanted the base talking fire while they walked somewhere cold. Where? I asked. He turned his head like a dog catching a scent it wished it didn't know. The records vault, he said. Building 12. It's unlocked every morning at 0600 to stage requests. It's 0630 now. We were already moving. We hit Building 12 on a run. The vestibule smelled like toner and floor wax. The vault door stood open 2 inches. The keypad blinked a sleepwalker's blink. I put my hand on the steel. It was cool. I pushed inside. Row after row of metal cabinets sat like disciplined soldiers. The middle row had a drawer open. Files lay aslant. One folder sat square in the empty space. The tab read in neat black letters, Carter, Elizabeth, Unclassified, and Dusty Road. The room tilted, and then it didn't. Hale stepped to my shoulder. He saw the tab. He saw my name. He drew a breath. Admiral, he said, but I was already reaching for the file, and a voice behind us said, Don't. Cold. Calm. Not afraid. We turned. The muzzle of a silenced pistol looked like a dark button in the hand of my chief of staff. Commander Vale's hair never moved out of place. Not in storms. Not in briefings. Not now inside a records vault with a pistol pointed at my chest. He had a talent for quiet. It made people think he had nothing to say. It's the quiet men who map your faults. Step away from the drawer, he said. Hale went very still. He pulled his shoulders half an inch wider. He was a wall now. I wanted to tell him to lean. To fall, to crush. But guns speed arguments you should win slow. Lower the weapon, I said. My voice did not try to climb. It went level. It touched only the words it needed. Vale's eyes flicked to Hale. Lieutenant, step back, he said. This is between the Admiral and me. No, Hale said. Vale's mouth twitched. You should have been in the brig, he said. I told you, Admiral. Discipline has to look like discipline. You told me a lot of things, I said. You missed this. Lower the weapon. He tilted his head. You're reading this wrong. Am I? I asked. He gestured with the barrel at the file. That folder is a problem. The codename is a problem. People who reach into old dirt forget dirt clings. Dusty Road, Hale murmured under his breath. He glanced at me. A question. A piece of a story he didn't own. My father's watch ticked once and stopped again. I had carried that road in my bones for 2 decades. Not a codename when I first knew it. A strip of land that rubbed your skin raw if you fell from your bike. A place where you learned to keep your eyes open because the horizon could lie. Put the pistol down, I said again. Vale's gaze slid to the door. He was calculating time. He was always calculating time. He moved. Hale moved faster. The pistol barked like a cough. The sound slammed the cabinets and came back thin. The round went wide. Hale hit Vale's wrist like a hammer. The gun clattered. I kicked it under the far drawer. It thudded and vanished into shadow. For a second, 3 bodies made a knot of elbows and breath. Vale was stronger than he looked. He twisted free of Hale and drove a shoulder into my ribs. I went back into a cabinet. Folders trembled in their slots. My hands burned. My elbow howled. The watch bit into my skin like a tooth. Park appeared in the door, eyes huge, radio in hand. "Security." He started, then saw the scene and said nothing. "Don't," I told him. He froze. Vale straightened his coat with quick, precise fingers. He looked at Hale, he looked at me. He smiled like nothing had happened. "We all make mistakes," he said mildly. "Let's call this one even. You cut my fuel line," I said. He almost laughed. "No, I hired men who did. Why?" Hale said. His voice was not angry now. It was something harder, colder. The voice you get when anger has already burned away and left a clean edge. "Because the world runs on favors," Vale said. "Because I have spent 20 years paying other people's debts and pretending they're mine. Because a file like that," he nodded at the drawer with my name, "makes men in Washington decide someone like you belongs in a frame, not in a chair." "You tried to pull me down," I said, "by lighting fires and turning cameras off. Not to pull you down," he said. "To spook you. To make you look back instead of forward. The Admiral reports a base fire on her first morning. She looks cautious. She looks human. She looks like someone you can move on a board." Hale took a short step. Vale's gaze snapped to the motion. "Don't," he warned. "What is Dusty Road?" Hale asked me. I didn't answer, not yet. If I named it, I owned it again. If I owned it, every man in this room owned me. Vale saw the silence and mistook it for fear. "You see?" he said to Hale, almost kindly. "The Admiral chose to forget that part of her life. She should have let it stay gone. There is no profit in digging up a child's mistakes." "It wasn't a mistake," I said softly. "It was a lesson. And it is mine." He shrugged. "We disagree." Security boots hammered the hall. Park had not called them. Someone else had heard the gun and the fight and the thud of a cabinet. Someone always hears. We stood there in the triangle of file, gun, door, caught between paper and steel and the simple math of footsteps. I picked up the folder. I did not open it. I tucked it under my arm. "Commander Vale," I said, voice still level, still touching only the words it needed. "You are relieved. You will accompany these officers to holding. You will keep breathing until I have questions to ask you. Then we will see what you have to say without the pistol." He smiled again. "And if I refuse?" I stepped close. Close enough to count the thread in his collar. Close enough to smell the citrus of his soap, the ink on his hands. "Then you will discover," I said, "what a person can do without a gun and with a very good memory." For a flicker, the smile went out. A shadow of the man under the polish crossed his face. He nodded once. "Very well," he said. "For now." Security took him. He didn't struggle. Men like Vale don't fight in hallways. They fight in rooms you aren't invited into. They fight with signatures and soft words and sidebars. When the door swallowed him, the vault felt colder. Park exhaled. "Admiral, seal this room," I said. "Log every hand." Park nodded and went to work. Hale stood without moving. He looked at the folder under my arm. He looked at my face. He said nothing. He had learned something in the last 15 minutes. Sometimes questions break what they're trying to lift. Sometimes you wait. We walked out into the wind. The sky had turned a flat, rinsed blue. The trucks rolled away. The bay door hung on its rail like a jaw after a punch. Somewhere, a siren kept forgetting whether it wanted to sing. I flipped open the folder under the shadow of the building's eave. Photos. One map. A report stamped in red. It wasn't a long file. The important ones never are. "Dusty Road," I said, and the words tasted like clay. "Rural interdiction tasking, before I was a line officer, before I had a ship, before the crack in this watch." Hale waited. "We were supposed to stop a run of contraband through a farm belt town," I said. "It wasn't drugs. It wasn't guns. It was fuel cut dirty. Sold cheap. Shipped in cans that looked like the brand my father used." Hale's jaw moved once. "My town," he said, very low. "Maybe," I said. "There were 100 like it. Men burned barns for insurance. Houses went up when heaters coughed. We shut down a ring. We missed a name. It matters which name you miss. It matters when you find it again. He rubbed the scar under his eye. You think Vale is the missing name? No, I said. He's the man who thinks he can sell it. Someone else is the man who buys. Who? He asked. I stared past him at the dusty road beyond the fence. At the bus stop. At the town beyond. At the kind of horizon that lies and tells the truth at the same time. I don't know, I said, but he will come for this file. He already has, and next time he won't send a quiet man with a clean shirt. Hale let out a breath. Then we set the table, he said, and we make sure we choose the seats. I slid the folder into my coat. The watch ticked once. It was enough. Report to my office, I said. I'm putting you on this, he blinked. Admiral, after you pinned me to a wall, I said. Yes, you will make mistakes again, Lieutenant. So will I. Let's make them on the same side of the line.